Our connection to animals often begins in small, quiet moments. As children, we don't need to be told to care. We feel it. We understand intuitively that animals deserve kindness and safety. But somewhere along the way, we start to lose that instinct. Or maybe we're taught to ignore it. We are not born wanting to harm other forms of life, but over time we become desensitized to systems that treat animals as invisible. Whether it's farming, industry, or policy, we learn to accept suffering as normal, even when we feel deep down that it shouldn't be. For me, this isn't just a research topic, it's personal. A few years ago, I found Keksi, a tiny kitten injured and hiding in a bush. I got him the care he needed, and he's been by my side ever since. Living with him reminds me every single day how much animals depend on us, and just how much they give us in return. That experience led me to ask a bigger question. If animals play such a meaningful role in our lives, emotionally, socially, ecologically, why are they left out of how we define national progress? This project argues that animal welfare should be formally recognized as part of national development, and not just for ethical reasons, but because it is necessary for building a more just, inclusive, and sustainable future. To explore this topic, I used two main methods. Firstly, I reviewed academic research on development, ethics, and animal welfare. Then I as well created a public survey to hear directly from people, both in Finland and the United Arab Emirates, about how they see the connection between animal welfare and national progress. Together, these helped me understand both the theory and what people actually think. Through my research, I identified key findings that challenge the way we currently measure development and suggest a better, more inclusive path forward. The first key finding is that mainstream development frameworks still operate from a strictly human-centered perspective. The Human Development Index and Sustainable Development Goals make no direct mention of animal welfare alone. Alan C. Kelly critiques the HDI for being narrow and ethically limited, while Jeff Sabo argues that this kind of exclusion reflects a deeper institutional neglect for non-human lives. But there is room for change. Research by Linda Keeling and her team found that 66 out of the 169 SDG targets already align with animal welfare, even if they're not framed that way. This means that the inclusion of animal welfare wouldn't disrupt the current SDG framework, it would in fact strengthen it. One of the key indicators I looked at is the Animal Protection Index, or API. It's a global tool developed by World Animal Protection, and it ranks countries based on how strong their animal protection policies are. The scores go from A to G, with A being the highest. But as you can see on the map here, no country in the world currently holds an A rating. Even the highest scoring nations still have major gaps when it comes to protecting animals. Researchers Holst and Martens use the API to study what actually predicts stronger animal protection. Their findings were surprising. They showed that better laws are not linked to wealth or economic status, but to democracy and civil society engagement. So, in other words, it's not about how rich a country is, it's about how responsive, transparent, and ethically accountable its institutions are. Other researchers like Otter, O'Sullivan, and Ross highlight that global animal welfare governance is still very fragmented. And activist Friedrich Müllen from organization Soko Tierschutz puts it very simply: the Animal Welfare Act exists on paper but never in the barn. His words reflect a troubling reality that even countries with animal welfare laws often actually fail to enforce them. These laws only matter if they're actually implemented, because when they're not, the suffering continues unseen and unaccounted for. And now moving on to a video clip from a DW documentary on modern agriculture. We'll see how animals are truly treated in today's industrial farming systems, as documented by Sopa Tierschutz.
The Soko Tierschutz server is full of horrific footage of animals in the food industry. Thousands of broiler chickens, for example, are loaded and driven around the country for hours.
You can see how carelessly they grab them by the feet and throw them in there, ratchet the doors shut, no matter if there's a head or a wing sticking out.
Aging cows are carelessly disposed of, sometimes illegally slaughtered, when they no longer produce milk. Male calves are worthless from the start. Turkeys are overbred to such an extent that they barely last until they are ready for slaughter.
The body grows rapidly, literally vegetates, and bones and joints just can't keep up.
Before being slaughtered, pigs are stunned with CO2 in gas chambers while they panic and fight for their lives. That's not a scandalous exception, but the norm.
Every biologist knows that CO2 causes pain in the mucous membrane, but the big corporations have pushed this through, have made it possible, as it's the only way you can slaughter 25,000 pigs a day. That one's still not stunned back there.
The same patterns are evident everywhere. A system designed around profits and only as much animal welfare as the law requires.
I'm an optimistic animal rights activist. That makes me very different from the majority of people who call themselves animal rights activists, because they say everything's getting more and more horrible. And yes, I believe that we and I will live to see the end of mass animal husbandry, because I'm watching very closely how this industry is developing, what problems it has, where it's already crumbling, where the first parts are already collapsing. And that's in full swing right now. We have the most extreme human-animal relationship dynamic in the history of humanity.
Sometimes he can't even stand documenting the conditions.
That was the sweetest thing ever. I was rescuing a duck from a farm. I found it, and I just couldn't leave it there. This is Zelda the duck. She's such an enthusiastic bird. She immediately started to clean herself. She was so dirty. After that, the bird was clean and the whole bathroom dirty. Now, when we turn on the flush, the bird goes absolutely crazy. And this is the first time that this water bird gets to swim in water. So that was one of the most beautiful moments I've ever experienced.
These are the conditions animals face in industrial systems, even where protection laws exist. It's a reminder that development can't be just measured in numbers. It must reflect the lived realities of all beings within a society. And that brings us to how people actually feel about this issue. In my original survey, over 90% of participants agreed that animal welfare is relevant to national development. Most strongly connected it to issues such as governance, sustainability, and public health. Culturally, this view is not new. Park and Singer highlight Islamic, Buddhist, Hindu, and other non-Western traditions that have long emphasized compassion toward animals. So the idea of including animal welfare is not a Western invention, it's a global resonant value. And we are actually not starting from zero. Tools like welfare quality, which provide science-based ways to measure how animals are treated on farms, and the One Welfare model, which links human, animal, and environmental well-being, already exist. Leslie and Sunstein argue as well that even simple policies like labeling systems or tax incentives can begin shifting how animals are treated. Based on this research, there are several clear steps forward. First, we can start integrating animal welfare into national reporting, especially through existing frameworks like the SDGs. At the international level, supporting agreements like the UN Convention on Animal Health and Protection would give these issues legal weight. Countries can also use tools like the Animal Protection Index or the One Welfare model to guide their policy making. And finally, we need more public engagement through education, media, and civil society. Because real change doesn't just come from institutions, it comes from people. Animal welfare is not separate from development. It reflects how ethically, sustainably, and inclusively we build our societies. Integrating it into development frameworks is not only possible, it's necessary.